Officer Jake Miller had faced shootouts, blizzards, and death itself, but nothing shattered him like the night his canine partner Ranger took a bullet meant for him. In the frozen streets of Cedar Falls, Jake carried the bleeding German shepherd in his arms, snow soaking through his uniform, his heart pounding against the ticking clock of fate. At the small-town clinic, Dr. Ava Brooks whispered that Ranger's chances were near zero. The bullet had pierced deep, and something darker was at play. Tests revealed the unthinkable. Ranger had been poisoned before the ambush. As the monitors flatlined, Jake pressed his forehead against his partner's fur and whispered, "Don't you leave me, boy." And then, a faint heartbeat. What happened next will move you to tears and restore your faith in the bond that can outlast even death itself. Before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. Let's see how far this story travels. The blizzard had swallowed Cedar Falls, Colorado, in a sea of white. Midnight silence was broken only by the faint wail of sirens fading into the storm. The town's streets, once peaceful under golden lamplight, now hid the ghosts of chaos and a miracle waiting to happen. The night wind howled across Cedar Falls, slicing through the alleyways like a living thing. Snow fell in heavy sheets, swirling under the orange glow of distant street lamps. Officer Jake Miller, 36, stood beside his patrol car at the edge of the old freight yard, breath fogging the air. He was a tall man, built from years of police work and harder years before that. Scars on his knuckles, a streak of silver in his dark hair, and eyes the color of slate that had seen too many good men buried young. Once a soldier, now a peacekeeper, Jake carried himself with quiet discipline. People in town called him the steady one, though his ex-wife used to say he hid too much behind calm eyes. Beside him sat Ranger, a 6-year-old German shepherd, broad-chested with a black and tan coat dusted white by snow. The dog's ears twitched at every sound, muscles coiled under his fur, but his amber eyes carried warmth, a look of constant readiness mixed with affection. Ranger had been Jake's partner for 4 years, trained for search and rescue as well as detection. He had saved 3 lives in that time, yet Jake always thought it was the dog who saved him, dragging him out of the loneliness that followed war. The call had come 15 minutes earlier. Fire at the freight yard, possible explosion risk. Jake gripped the steering wheel, feeling the hum of tension rise through his chest as he guided the cruiser through the storm. When he arrived, orange flames licked through the wooden siding of the last storage car, sending sparks spiraling into the night. No other units had made it yet. The roads were near impassable. The smell of burning diesel bit into the cold air. "Stay sharp, boy," Jake murmured, unclipping Ranger's harness. The dog jumped down, paws crunching into the ice. Together they moved through the maze of rusted train cars, light from Jake's flashlight dancing over half-buried tracks. Each gust of wind carried the crackle of fire and a low metallic groan, as though the yard itself were warning them away. Inside one of the burning cars came a faint cry, a high, trembling voice lost beneath the wind. Jake froze. It wasn't the wail of metal or the scream of flame. It was a child. "Ranger, search!" The dog bounded forward, weaving through smoke and snow, tail stiff, nose low. Jake followed close behind, heart hammering. He reached the door of the burning car and yanked at the handle. It gave way with a shriek of metal, heat spilling over him like breath from a furnace. Ranger leapt through the gap first, disappearing into the thick gray haze. Jake pulled his jacket over his mouth and pushed in after him. Inside was chaos. Flames clawed at stacks of wooden crates, labels peeling off in the heat. The smell was wrong, not just smoke, but something chemical and harsh. Through the flickering light, Jake saw Ranger's silhouette crouched beside a small figure huddled in a corner. A boy, no older than 7, clutching a red scarf to his chest. His cheeks were streaked with soot and tears, eyes wide with panic. "Hey, buddy!" Jake's voice cracked through the roar. "We're getting you out of here!" He lifted the boy, who clung to him with desperate fingers. The moment they turned, a blast ripped through the far end of the car, one of the barrels bursting from heat. Shrapnel sliced through the air, a sharp whistle, then a yelp. Jake stumbled out into the snow, dropping to his knees and shielding the boy. When he looked back, Ranger was dragging himself out behind him, limping, a dark stain spreading across his flank. Jake's stomach twisted. No, come on, pal." He pressed a gloved hand against the wound. It was shallow but bleeding fast. The boy whimpered, trembling from shock. From the distance came another sound, whistling fireworks and a sudden plume of red light bursting above the yard. Flare signals. Jake realized the truth too late. The fire wasn't an accident, it was a diversion. Shadows moved at the far end of the tracks, men in dark coats loading crates into a truck. Industrial barrels, chemical shipments. His radio crackled uselessly in the storm. Static, no backup. He had one injured dog, one terrified child, and a crime scene erupting around him. "We're leaving," he muttered. He handed the boy his scarf back. "Hold on to Ranger's collar, okay? Don't let go." The child nodded mutely. Together they trudged through the snow, Ranger hobbling but refusing to fall. Jake could hear the men shouting, the hiss of compressed gas leaking from broken drums. The air stung with chlorine. The wind carried the tang of poison. Ranger's breaths turned ragged, each exhale a cloud of pain. Jake's training fought his panic. Keep moving, keep them breathing. He reached the patrol car, shoved the boy inside, then scooped Ranger into his arms. The dog's body was heavier than he remembered, muscles slack with exhaustion. "Hang in there, partner," Jake whispered, voice cracking. "We're not done yet." He slammed the door, turned the key. The engine coughed, hesitated, then growled to life. The windshield was a sheet of white, visibility near zero. Jake switched on the siren anyway, a lonely wail swallowed by the storm. "Dispatch, this is Officer Miller. Freight yard fire, possible chemical spill, one civilian child rescued, K9 injured. Request immediate medical and hazmat support." Only static answered. He slammed the radio against the dash. "Damn it!" Beside him, the boy stared, wide-eyed. "Is he gonna die?" Jake glanced at Ranger, whose chest rose unevenly beneath a torn harness. "Not if I can help it." He tried to smile, the kind of smile that kept fear from spreading. "He's tougher than both of us combined." The boy wiped his eyes. "He saved me." "Yeah," Jake said softly. "That's what he does." He pressed the accelerator, tires spinning on the ice. Each turn of the wheel felt like wrestling. The storm itself. The wind screamed against the windows, snow slicing sideways through the night. His hands trembled, not from cold, but from the memory of another night years ago. Afghanistan, a convoy burning, a radio dead, and a friend he couldn't save. The same helplessness clawed at him now, whispering that history was repeating. But not this time. "Hold on, Ranger," he muttered. "You're getting that donut. You hear me? Big one. Maple glaze." It was the joke he always made after long shifts, a ritual between them. The dog's tail thumped once weakly against the seat, just enough to break Jake's composure. He blinked hard and focused on the road ahead. The town's lights were faint in the distance, flickering like hope itself. Behind them, the freight yard glowed red against the snow, flames devouring steel, painting the sky with false dawn. When they finally reached the outer road, Jake saw a figure waving through the snow. Dr. Ava Brooks, the town's only veterinarian, bundled in a thick brown coat. She was 33, petite but sturdy, her auburn hair tied messily beneath a knit cap. Her sharp green eyes widened at the sight of the patrol car. Jake rolled down the window. "Injured dog, smoke and shrapnel," he called out, voice hoarse. "Bring him in now," she shouted back, urgency slicing through the wind. Jake parked crooked beside her clinic, lifting Ranger carefully into his arms. The heat from inside hit him like a wave as they rushed through the door, the boy trailing behind, clutching the scarf. Ava cleared a table with one sweep of her arm, barking quick orders to her assistant. Her movements were fast, efficient, years of experience masking fear. "Get oxygen ready, he's losing consciousness," she said, peeling back the bloody fur. The smell of metal and chlorine filled the small room. "What happened out there?" Jake shook his head, eyes fixed on his partner. "Fire was a setup, chemicals everywhere. He dragged a kid out." Ava looked up, her expression softening briefly before tightening again. "Then we're not letting him go down after that." Ranger's eyes fluttered open once more, finding Jake's face. The amber light in them flickered like a dying flame, yet trust still burned beneath. Jake pressed his forehead to the dog's, whispering, "Don't leave me, buddy, not tonight." The monitors began to beep, erratic and fast. Ava shouted for more light. Outside, sirens wailed faintly at last, growing nearer through the snow. And somewhere deep inside the storm, beyond the reach of the clinic's warm glow, a dark truck rolled quietly down the back road, its driver watching the fire fade in his rearview mirror, a phone pressed to his ear. "Phase 1 worked," the man said coldly. They took the bait. The line crackled and a voice replied, "Then move to phase 2. The storm had weakened by dawn, but the air over Cedar Falls still smelled faintly of ash and chlorine. Inside Brooks Veterinary Clinic, fluorescent lights hummed softly, casting pale reflections over stainless steel tables and steaming instruments. Dr. Ava Brooks hadn't slept. Her auburn hair was pulled into a loose knot, and shadows circled her green eyes. She moved with brisk precision, her gloved hands steady, even as exhaustion crept into her shoulders. In the corner, Ranger lay beneath a dome of plastic sheeting, a makeshift oxygen tent she had rigged with tubing and an air compressor. The dog's chest rose shallowly, fogging the clear barrier with each labored breath. Jake Miller stood nearby, his uniform jacket tossed over a chair, sleeves rolled up. His arms were corded with muscle and faint scars, evidence of someone who had seen more than his share of nights like this. Yet now, watching the dog who'd saved him more than once, he looked powerless. He leaned on the counter, gaze fixed on the faint rhythmic blink of the monitor Ava had wired to Ranger's pulse. "How bad is it?" he asked quietly. Ava peeled off her gloves and reached for a syringe filled with a clear amber fluid. "The shrapnel didn't go deep. I removed what I could. But the real danger isn't the wound." She nodded toward a small steel tray filled with gauze, stained greenish-gray. "There's residue on the fur and bandage, chloramine compound, industrial grade. It burns the lungs from the inside out. He's been inhaling it." Jake frowned. "You're saying this was chemical exposure, not poisoning?" "Exactly." She inserted the syringe into an IV line, adjusting the drip. Whatever leaked out there wasn't meant to kill instantly, but it's toxic enough to cripple anything that breathes it too long. Her tone softened as she brushed a gloved hand over Ranger's head. "He's lucky you got him out when you did." Jake's jaw tightened. Lucky doesn't feel right. That yard was a setup. Somebody wanted that place burning. Before Ava could answer, the door swung open, letting in a blast of cold air and a figure bundled in a gray coat dusted with snow. Maya Collins, local reporter for the Cedar Falls Chronicle, entered holding a steaming cup of coffee and a notebook tucked under her arm. She was in her early 30s, tall, with honey blonde hair and a messy braid, and an expression that mixed curiosity with the fatigue of someone who'd lived too many late deadlines. Her voice carried the quick tempo of someone who'd learned to keep pace with the truth, even when it ran away. "You look like hell," she said to Jake, offering the coffee. "Thanks, I feel worse," Jake muttered, taking it. "You get anything?" Maya flipped open her notebook, scanning scribbles. "I dug through last night's shipping records. Pike Freight had a convoy listed as agricultural disinfectant. But here's the fun part. It cleared the Sainte-Soise freight checkpoint after hours. Only one signature on the manifest, Deputy Cole Barrett." Ava looked up sharply. "Your deputy signed off on chemical shipments in the middle of a blizzard?" Jake's face hardened. "Cole doesn't work hazmat clearance. He's supposed to be on patrol north side." Maya nodded. "I checked. No log entry for his patrol route after 8 p.m. He went dark for 3 hours, the same window the fire started." Silence filled the clinic, heavy and sterile. The sound of Ranger's soft breathing was the only proof of life in the room. Ava finally broke it. "Jake, whatever happened out there, it wasn't random. Those chemicals were meant to vanish in that fire. Someone's laundering more than just freight." Jake rubbed the back of his neck. "Pike Freight's been on the radar before. Suspicious cargo, false manifests, but nothing ever stuck. Now it's chemicals, a rogue deputy, and a kid almost dead in the fire." His voice dropped to a low growl. "I'm not letting this slide." Maya smirked faintly. "That's the part I missed about you, Miller. You don't do small fights." He gave her a look, but the corner of his mouth twitched. "Still chasing headlines over justice, Collins?" "Justice makes better headlines," she shot back. Their banter was interrupted by a faint whine from the table. Ava turned. Ranger stirred under the oxygen tent, paws twitching weakly. Ava lifted the edge of the sheet just enough to check his pupils. "Good sign," she murmured. "He's responsive." Jake stepped closer, his hand resting gently on the dog's neck. "You hang in there, buddy. We're not done yet." For the first time in hours, Ranger's tail gave a faint thump against the mat. Ava exhaled. "That's your miracle for the day." Jake looked up. "One's not enough." Maya leaned against the counter, pulling her phone from her pocket. There's more. The boy you rescued. Hospitals identifying him as Evan Reed, 7 years old. No missing person report filed. The nurse said he kept repeating one word before he fell asleep. Jake frowned. What word? Trucks? Jake's mind clicked through possibilities like a puzzle tightening into place. So he saw them. Pike's men. Ava crossed her arms. He's a child, Jake. You can't interrogate him. I'm not going to interrogate him, Jake said, though his tone carried the weight of old habits. But he might know where they were headed. Ava's green eyes met his. Just don't forget. He's alive because your dog put himself between him and a fireball. Maybe give both of them a moment before you chase ghosts. Jake wanted to argue, but exhaustion cut through his stubbornness. She was right, for now, at least. Maya slipped her coat back on, scribbling something quickly. I'll head to the freight office. Maybe I can charm the clerk into giving me access to the security logs before they vanish. You two keep the hero breathing. Ava raised an eyebrow. Be careful. If Pike's crew burned a yard, they won't blink at torching a reporter. Maya smiled thinly. They'll have to catch me first. When she left, silence returned. The snow outside had eased into a lazy drift, soft and deceptive. Jake sank into the chair beside Ranger, elbows on his knees, eyes hollow. Ava poured herself a cup of coffee, watching him from across the room. You trust her? With my life, Jake said without hesitation. She's pulled me out of worse fires than this, literally. Ava half smiled. Sounds like history. Yeah, he muttered. History with sharp elbows and bad coffee. The moment of lightness faded quickly. Ranger's breathing deepened, steadier now. Ava adjusted the IV line. He'll make it through the night, but his lungs need rest. No field work for a while. Jake nodded. He's earned it. He stared at the dog, then at the faint glow of sunrise bleeding through the frosted window. We'll get to the bottom of this, Ranger. I swear it. From outside came the faint rumble of an engine pulling up, tires crunching over the snow. Ava turned toward the sound, frowning. Expecting someone? Jake shook his head slowly, rising. He moved to the window and peered out. A dark pickup truck idled by the curb, its plates half covered in slush. The driver's silhouette sat motionless, face obscured by frost on the windshield. Then the truck shifted into gear and rolled away, taillights fading into the gray morning mist. Jake's pulse. The next morning dawned pale and brittle over Cedar Falls, the kind of winter light that turned every breath to silver mist. Frost clung to the pine branches like shards of glass. Maya Collins stood beside her dented Jeep at the edge of a dirt road, camera slung around her neck, her boots sinking into the snow as she adjusted her coat collar against the cold. Her pulse quickened with the rush of a lead finally coming together. After a long night combing through freight records and false invoices, one shipment stood out. The chemical order from Pike Freight had never reached its supposed destination. Instead, the trail ended here, at a forgotten horse farm on the outskirts of town. She raised her camera and zoomed in on the main barn. A truck was parked half inside, its trailer door ajar. The Pike Freight logo, a faded blue triangle, gleamed faintly under frost. Then a second vehicle pulled up, a dark SUV, engine growling low. Maya ducked behind a snowbank, holding her breath. From the SUV stepped Deputy Cole Barrett, tall, early 30s, clean-shaven, his uniform crisp beneath a brown leather jacket. His face was handsome in a sharp, deliberate way, jaw squared, blonde hair combed with military precision, but his eyes carried something harder, like stone under glass. People around town said he was charming but distant, a man who laughed without ever really smiling. Rumor had it he'd lost his brother years ago in a drug bust gone wrong, something that had left him cold to the idea of playing by the book. Cole opened the trunk, pulled out a black briefcase, and walked toward the barn. From the shadows inside emerged another man, older, heavy-set, wearing a wool coat and a faded baseball cap pulled low over graying hair. His hands were large, veined, the kind of hands that had once built things, but now only counted money. Raymond Pike, owner of Pike Freight. His reputation was that of a local businessman, though everyone knew his company moved more than just freight. Maya lifted her camera, snapping silently as the two men met halfway. Pike's breath came out in thick puffs as he opened the briefcase. Stacks of bills gleamed beneath the gray light. Cole looked around once before taking it. Maya's finger hovered over the shutter again when a faint vibration buzzed in her pocket. Her phone. She froze. It was Jake Miller calling. She hesitated, then answered in a whisper. "Jake, I found them," she said, crouching lower. "Cole just met Pike at the old Miller Ranch off Route 9. He's taking cash. I've got pictures." Jake's voice came through low, steady, but laced with urgency. "Don't engage. I'm 10 minutes out. Stay hidden." She exhaled, nodding though he couldn't see. "Copy that." At the same moment, several miles away, Jake's patrol car crawled through the snow-laden back road, tires crunching softly. Ranger, sitting upright in the passenger seat, looked far better than he had 24 hours ago. The oxygen therapy had steadied his breathing, though a bandage still wrapped his flank. His eyes, sharp and alive again, flicked toward the window as if sensing something ahead. "You smell it too, don't you?" Jake muttered. He rolled the window down, just enough for Ranger to stick his nose into the wind. Within seconds, the dog stiffened and gave a short, urgent bark. Chlorine, faint but real. When Jake reached the farm's entrance, he killed the engine and stepped out. He wore a plain parka over his uniform, his badge tucked away. Snow muffled his boots as he moved along the fence line. Through the slats, he caught sight of the barn's interior. Rows of industrial canisters, their labels marked with hazard symbols. Near the back wall stood a metal compressor, its valves crudely welded. Jake's training told him what it meant, an improvised dispersal system. If triggered, it would release chlorine gas to suffocate anyone inside while masking the theft of cargo. He signaled Ranger forward. The dog sniffed along the snowdrift, circling the compressor. A faint hiss escaped the valve. A slow leak. Jake reached out and twisted the regulator carefully shut. "Good boy," he whispered. Ranger's ears perked, tail still. A low rumble cut through the quiet. Tires. Cole's SUV pulled away from the barn, snow spraying beneath the wheels. Jake ducked behind a trough, watching as it vanished down the back road. Pike followed, lumbering into his truck and slamming the door. Within minutes, both vehicles disappeared into the forest trail, engines fading. Maya emerged from behind the snowbank, brushing ice off her coat. "You just missed your old colleague's side gig," she said, voice tight. Jake shot her a warning look. "You were supposed to stay put." "Yeah, and you were supposed to retire before the town killed you," she shot back, though her grin was hollow. She glanced at the barn. "What now?" Jake took a slow breath. "Now we call it in." He lifted his radio. "Dispatch, Officer Miller requesting immediate warrant for search and seizure, suspected chemical smuggling at Miller Ranch, primary suspects Cole Barrett and Raymond Pike." The reply was static, then a clipped voice. "Request acknowledged. Stand by for authorization." But the line went dead. Jake lowered the radio, jaw clenching. "They've got someone inside the network. That's why Pike's been untouchable." Maya frowned. "So what do we do?" Jake's eyes shifted toward the horizon where the first banners of the Cedar Falls Ice Festival fluttered in the wind. "We move before they do. Those chemicals aren't staying here long. My bet, they're moving them into town, hiding in plain sight." Maya tilted her head. "Festival traffic. Fireworks trucks, food stalls, ice cream vans." Jake nodded grimly. "And one of them will be carrying poison." Behind them, Ranger growled low, nose lifting toward the road. A faint echo of engines returned. Distant but closing fast, Jake's pulse kicked into high gear. "They're circling back," he said. "They know the gas didn't cover their tracks." He turned to Maya. "Get to your car. Send the pictures to 3 different places: the Chronicle, the State Bureau, and my personal line. If they jam communications, we'll need backups." "What about you?" she demanded. Jake glanced toward the barn, where thin trails of vapor still hissed from the pipes. "I'll buy." The night of the Cedar Falls Ice Festival unfolded under a canopy of electric blue and amber lights. Music, laughter, and the crisp scent of roasted chestnuts drifted through the square, masking the tension that gripped Officer Jake Miller's chest. Beneath the celebration, danger pulsed unseen. The crowd's joy was both shield and obstacle. Ranger, finally strong enough to walk without a limp, paced at Jake's side, his fur gleaming beneath the lights, eyes alert and sharp as ever. Every few seconds his ears twitched, sensing what humans could not. The ice cream truck parked near the fireworks zone looked harmless, painted with smiling penguins and snowflakes, but Ranger's body stiffened, his nose cutting through the sweet fog of cinnamon and smoke. Then came the growl, low, guttural, unmistakable. "You got something, boy?" Jake murmured. Ranger barked twice, tugging his leash hard enough to nearly pull him forward. The dog led him straight toward the truck's rear door. Inside the festival's first aid tent, Dr. Ava Brooks was tending to a young skater's bruised ankle. She wore a thick white parka, her red hair tucked beneath a wool hat, cheeks flushed from the cold. Despite the festive chaos outside, her expression was taut. Ever since Jake had asked her to be on standby, she had sensed this night would end in something more than fireworks. A shout erupted from near the river. The ice cream truck's back doors slammed open, and Deputy Cole Barrett emerged, gun in hand, the muzzle glinting in the flickering light. He looked almost unrecognizable, uniform replaced by dark tactical gear, face pale and slick with sweat. For a heartbeat, the crowd froze. Then panic broke like glass. Screams scattered across the plaza as people ran for cover. Cole's voice cut through the chaos. "Stay back! Everyone stay where you are!" His hand seized the nearest person, Ava, who had just stepped out from the tent. He pressed the gun to her shoulder, dragging her close. "You think you can take me down, Miller? You don't even know who you're working for!" Jake emerged from the smoke and flashing lights, his stance calm but coiled with purpose. "Cole, it's over," he said, voice low. "Let her go. This isn't who you are." Cole's jaw trembled, rage and fear warring behind his eyes. "You don't get it, Jake. Pike owns this town. We were supposed to make it out clean. No one hurt, no one killed." His voice cracked on the last word. Behind him, the fireworks countdown began. 10 seconds until the sky erupted. As the first shell launched, Maya Collins appeared from behind the concession booth, her camera raised, lens blinking red. She had followed the signal from Jake's emergency ping. Her hands shook, but her eyes were steady. She began recording, her breath fogging the air. "I've got you, Jake," she whispered. The explosion of light above blinded everyone for a second. In that flash, Ranger moved. The dog slipped low, circling behind the wooden display platform. The music roared back to life, the fireworks crackled, and in that confusion, Jake stepped closer. "Cole, listen to me," he said, his tone softening. "You can still walk away." Cole's eyes flicked toward him, and that single heartbeat of distraction was all Ranger needed. The German Shepherd lunged, teeth clamping around Cole's wrist with lightning precision. The gun went off, once harmlessly into the snow. Cole screamed, losing his grip on Ava. Jake surged forward, tackling him hard, wrenching the weapon free. The two men struggled in the slush, breath steaming, until Cole finally went still, face pressed into the icy ground. Maya darted forward, capturing the aftermath, the fallen gun, the trembling Ava, the brave dog still holding Cole's sleeve in his jaws. The crowd, thinking it was a staged act, broke into applause. The sound washed over Jake like absurd relief. He rolled onto his back, gasping for air, and managed a crooked grin. "Thank you, folks," he rasped. "Tickets are free tonight." Near the frozen riverbank, a roar of an engine snapped his head up. A white pickup truck, Raymond Pike's, burst from the shadows, tearing across the ice. Jake stumbled to his feet, sprinting toward the river as the truck's headlights cut through the darkness. The ice groaned beneath the tires, then cracked like thunder. The truck pitched sideways, the river swallowing it whole in a surge of white foam and black water. Silence fell. Jake reached the edge, breath burning in his chest. For a moment, only the reflection of fireworks shimmered across the jagged hole. Ranger stood beside him, panting, eyes fixed on the sinking taillights that vanished into the depths. Jake exhaled, voice a whisper swallowed by the wind. "It's over." But somewhere inside he knew it wasn't, not yet. 2 weeks after the festival, Cedar Falls had returned to its sleepy rhythm. Snow blanketed the streets like a clean slate, covering the scars of that chaotic night. The headlines had run their course, but in the small-town diner where everyone eventually gathered, people still whispered the same name with gratitude: Ranger. The courthouse hearing was brief. Deputy Cole Barrett, face pale and hollow, stood before the judge in shackles. Gone was the polished uniform and forced smile. In its place stood a man stripped bare of illusion. He confessed to aiding Raymond Pike in smuggling industrial chemicals across state lines. His voice trembled as he spoke of desperation, debts, guilt over his brother's death, promises of a clean start that never came. Jake, sitting in the back of the courtroom, felt no victory, only a weary ache. He had once trusted Cole, once shared coffee and jokes during night patrols. When the gavel came down, Jake lowered his head and whispered, "It didn't have to end like this." Pike didn't make it that far. The state patrol caught him at the Wyoming border, a broken man behind the wheel of a half-sunken pickup truck. His face was ruddy and unshaven, gray stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights. The footage from Maya Collins's camera had gone viral. Cole's confession, Ranger's tackle, the moment Pike's license plate flashed under the fireworks. Those images became evidence, and the story spread faster than the snowstorm that had nearly buried it. The entire Pike freight network unraveled within days. For Maya, the story wasn't just an assignment anymore. It became her redemption. She spent sleepless nights editing her article, weaving facts and emotion until it captured not just the crime, but the town's quiet courage. When her piece finally went live, The Dog That Saved Cedar Falls, the comments section flooded with messages from readers who said it reminded them that good still fought back. In the photo above the headline, Jake knelt beside Ranger, hand resting on the dog's neck, both of them dusted with snow like battle-worn sentinels. Spring thawed the streets, and life began again. One Saturday morning, children's laughter drifted from behind Brooks Veterinary Clinic, where a wooden porch had been rebuilt with bright blue railings and a hanging sign carved by Jake himself, Ranger's Porch. Beneath it, a group of kids sat cross-legged on blankets, reading aloud to rescue dogs lying beside them. Dr. Ava Brooks, wearing a faded flannel shirt and her hair in a loose ponytail, watched from the steps with a soft smile. Jake leaned against the railing, coffee mug in hand, his uniform replaced by jeans and a brown jacket. "Didn't think this porch would ever see peace again," he said quietly. Ava turned toward him. "It's seen more than peace. It's seen second chances." Ranger, lying nearby, lifted his head at the sound of Jake's voice. The scar along his flank had faded to a faint line. Kids crowded around to pet him, and he endured it patiently, eyes half closed in contentment. For the dog who had once fought through fire and poison, this gentle chaos was a kind of heaven. Jake chuckled. "You're the real boss now, partner." Ava nudged his arm. "You finally learning to share credit?" "Trying," he said, smiling. Later that afternoon, as sunlight melted the last icicles off the roof, Maya arrived with her camera. "Final shots for the follow-up piece," she said. "Title's still pending, but I'm thinking A Town That Learned to Heal." Jake looked around, the children, Ava's smile, the steady thump of Ranger's tail against the porch. "Make sure you spell his name right," he said. Maya laughed. "That's the only part of the story I'll never get wrong." As she lifted her camera, a gust of wind caught the sign above them, making it creak gently in the sunlight. The world felt smaller, kinder, and for once, Jake didn't look toward the next storm. He just stood there, watching the dog who had pulled him out of the fire, both literal and within. Sometimes, miracles don't come with thunder or trumpets. They come quietly, on four paws in the middle of a snowstorm, through the courage of a tired man who refuses to stop believing that good still wins. Jake didn't find his miracle in a church or a prayer whispered under stained glass. He found it in the eyes of a wounded dog who never gave up. Ava found hers in the laughter of children learning compassion. And a small town, once broken by greed, found its redemption not in vengeance, but in kindness, faith, and the stubborn grace of second chances. If this story reminded you that hope still exists, that even in the coldest places God plants the seeds of light, then share it with someone who might need that reminder tonight. Comment your thoughts. Tell us what miracle you've witnessed in your own life, big or small. Subscribe to the channel to keep faith alive through more stories like this, where love, courage, and grace overcome the darkness. May God bless you and your family. May He guide your path, protect your home, and remind you, no matter how lost you feel, that you are never walking alone.